G'day everyone, this is Dan
And Kristy.
and we are Embrace the Crazy, where we talk about our lives, how crazy it is and how much we try and embrace it and enjoy the challenges that we have in having a family, running businesses, living our lives, managing finances and all the challenges that we live in and enjoy every day. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about where we live and how that impacts our life. And we've had a journey of a number of different moves, and it's a really important part of who you are and what community you're part of and who you're close to and how you bring up your family. So we really wanted to talk a bit about some of the decisions that we've made, why we made those decisions, and what the outcomes of those have been. So we're going to start with why we chose to live in Canberra, which is where we live, how we manage the pressures, and why we made some of those moves to mitigate some of those pressures that we have around your financial, your rental, and your mortgage pressures. And then we're going to talk about us expanding and growing and how we manage that, how we support that in our lives. So pretty exciting today. I think for me, I'm always thinking about where we're going to live and where we're going to be. And I never like to stand still. And I think it's a huge challenge for you, Kristy, and for anyone, to be honest, in our family. We like certainty and we like to be sure of where we are and who we are and where we're going to be. But at the same time, it's always exciting to be thinking ahead and thinking about changes and moves.
You're making me nervous.
I am, aren't I? So we've just had a big move. So we're in a place now that we're going to be in for quite a long while, which we're excited about. There's a lot of work to do on it. So we've got quite a big challenge ahead of us. But we thought it was such a great opportunity to talk a little bit about how we got to here, where we're going next, and probably share some of our thoughts, which I'm sure are really similar to yours. And I think talking about where you live and why you live in certain places is really important because it talks about what you care about in your lives and your family.
Definitely.
All right, so let's crack in. So why do we choose where we live, Kristy?
Well, you have to answer that question, Dan. You were the one that came up with the idea. We were living in Sydney for many, many years. I'm originally from Canberra. I grew up here and then I moved to Sydney to do uni, and that's where I met Dan. And I thought I was stuck there for forever then, once I met you and we started having children. But then we chose a few different places to live to be closer or further away from your workplace, particularly when I was a stay-at-home mum with the kids at home when they were really young. And I think there came a time where we were living in northwestern Sydney and you were still spending a lot of time traveling to and from work, and that was really, really hard. It was really hard for me. I'm not sure if it was that hard for you. That was one of the reasons we chose to move there, to be closer to your workplace. But we chose Canberra obviously because I'm from here. But I think one of the big reasons we chose it was the slower pace. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. And I think much more than that. I think we wanted to live in a place that was aligned to our family values and what we wanted to do with our family. So we want to spend time together.
Yeah.
We wanted to have really good facilities around us. We wanted it to be leafy, have trees and bush around us because that's something that's really important to me. We wanted to have nice people around. We wanted to live in a nice community. And so we use those as some of our key barometers. And the first one, without a doubt, in Sydney is a real challenge to achieve, which is being able to really reduce your travel week to week, day to day. And I say this to a lot of people about the move because a lot of our friends in Sydney will say, hey, I want to move, or I've been thinking about it. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me in the first few months of moving was how much more energy I had. You really forget how much the travel, and particularly travel in traffic, stopping and starting, where you really got to concentrate lots. It really does tax you and consume you week to week. And I found on Fridays I was absolutely exhausted in Sydney. And yes, I was working hard, but I think one of the big changes that I noticed when moving was that I didn't have that feeling. And yes, I still travel and I might travel 40 minutes a day versus 2 hours, but that's a huge difference. and the flow is really, really different, and the accessibility is really different. So to be able to get home if I need to and make those changes fast, you really can do that where we live now. Whereas before in Sydney, we really struggled that. But we made some choices, didn't we? Like if you think about, we lived in a location that we wanted to.
Yes.
That was a little bit further away from our work.
Very much so.
So that made that difficult, but it was in a nice place where we'd set up and we'd had friends and family around, and we really liked it there, which meant that I had to travel an hour each way.
And sometimes that was even longer. You know, when there's an accident on a major road in Sydney, you're stuffed. You sit there and you wait. There's nowhere to go, and sometimes it was even longer. And I actually noticed how tired you were, and you were running yourself ragged. And that for us wasn't the way to live. It wasn't the way to live, and particularly when we had our third child, I was really struggling. I was not struggling, but I was struggling with the fact that you were working such long hours and you weren't available to help with the kids. So you actually came up with the idea, Dan. How about we move somewhere away from Sydney?
Yeah.
So, and we looked at multiple places, but we decided on Canberra because I knew it, and we were actually looking in a completely different area of Canberra, and my family were here, and your family were in Sydney, so it was a hard decision, right? That we had to make that decision for our family. We made that decision for our family, and it was very much a joint decision, and it was pretty big, wasn't it? We bought the house here, and you didn't even have a job, so that was a huge thing. And talking about buying the house, going back to one of the major reasons for our decisions, there was a financial component to that, because we were living in northwestern Sydney and house prices would just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And when we started looking at other areas of Australia, we realised we could get much more bang for our buck in terms of what we were purchasing and location. And that was a really big draw card for Canberra for us. The availability of the city and the availability of actually every end of the city to where we wanted to live.
Absolutely. I think that was a huge factor. Essentially, we did a bit of a comparison of what can we get in Canberra versus what can we get in Sydney, and the differential was just really substantial. We knew that we would have to borrow a huge amount of money to be able to get what we wanted in Sydney. You know, we've got a big family. It's not easy to live in a 2-bedroom house. We need much more size than that. And, you know, with 3 young boys, they need to run around lots. They need a backyard. They need space. So we knew we needed something of size. And, you know, in Sydney, that's really challenging. That's really, really challenging and very, very costly. And so, you know, that was a decision that we'd had to make as to whether we weigh up something smaller in Sydney, continuing where we were, or making a change and maybe getting something that's bigger that probably hits more of our boxes.
Could you try again?
So I know it's challenging, isn't it, Siri? So I think that was a huge decision for us, but it was also really exciting. I think, you know, it was really hard from a family perspective, particularly from my family. We're moving away from our family, and it's only 3 hours away, but it's actually really substantial, particularly when you've got young kids. You know, kids change week to week. You know, my parents couldn't come in and see them as much as they had, and they'd been really well involved and really supportive. So that was really a challenging and difficult situation. But in the end, it's worked out really, really well, and they've moved closer as well. So it actually worked out in the best way possible. But at the time, it was really challenging. And so it is a really big decision, and you really need to think through it. And, you know, one of the things that I think your parents talked about a lot was, when you move out of a city like Sydney, it's very hard to go back to it. And that's from a cost perspective primarily, that, you know, the cost differentials are so big that your ability to be able to go back in is quite difficult. So, you know, we staged that process. We thought about it a lot. And in the end, we knew that this was a really good decision for us in our family. And so we were willing to take that risk and make the change happen.
Definitely. And I think it's worked out really well. You know, we've chosen a really beautiful neighbourhood. We've chosen a really good area where we're close to everything, really. We're close to Dan's work, obviously, but we're also close to the kids' school. We can jump on our bikes and we can ride to school. We can walk to school. We can walk to the local shops. We can walk to the major shopping centre if need be. So that we're very well connected here in Canberra. You know, there's the old saying that you can get anywhere in Canberra in 20 minutes, and it's really true. And I know that Dan's dad always makes the joke, oh, how long will it take to get to XYZ? And I always say, oh, it's just 20 minutes, we'll be there. So I think that the community that we've surrounded ourselves with has been lovely as well in terms of the kids' school, making friends. It was quite easy for me to connect with people that live in the local area. And, you know, our local area, it's quite an old suburb. So, you know, there's a lot of older people who are moving out or downsizing. So it's becoming attracting more of a younger family crowd. So I think it's been a really good move.
Absolutely. And so let's just talk about some of the things that helped us make the decision, or the things that were key to us moving. So I know some of the parameters that you talked about. So you talked about being close to school.
Yes.
So ideally we could walk to school or ride to school, so the kids could do that as they got older. So that was really important for us, making sure we had that clear.
And not just primary schools, because, you know, we moved when our eldest was in preschool, but looking ahead is the availability of high schools as well, which in Canberra there's amazing high schools so close. So that was also in the back of my mind, maybe not in the back of yours, but that was another thing that I looked at as well, or thought about.
Yep.
Not looked at, but
Facilities was also another big factor. So having really good parks around, really good sporting fields, and having shops as well close by were also other very important factors for choosing the right location for us as well.
Definitely. And I think the availability to the city as well. The city, if you're listening in Sydney, you're probably laughing. But particularly for your work, we looked how far you were willing to travel, didn't we? We didn't look particularly down the south side or particularly up the really northern ends of Canberra, because you wanted to be able to cycle to work. And that was another thing that you also wanted. You said, well, I want to be within this radius, so it's going to be easier for me to access work, however you wanted to do that.
Yep. And then from a house perspective, we had a few things on our mind. So we wanted a good sized block, probably going against the Australian grain of today, but we wanted a good sized block for our kids to be able to run outside. So that was really important for us, having a really good backyard where we could put in a trampoline, or Santa could bring a trampoline, and, you know, we could really enjoy being outside and kicking footballs around and not be restricted by going over the fence all the time, although it already does still.
It still does, no matter how big your yard is. And then we also looked at bedrooms and the size of the house, and we particularly looked for something that would grow with us as a family. So the first house we lived in here in Canberra had a separate main bedroom downstairs and a whole area for and then two separate living areas, which was really, really, really nice. But the downside of that house, which we probably didn't think too much about when we did buy it, was it was a busier road. Probably not, you know, busy as in Sydney terms, but it was a busier road, and it didn't really bother me so much, whereas Dan was always quite bothered by it. But that was the main thing. We wanted something that would grow with us and that would be able to be changed or renovated to suit our needs. And we were willing to look at something that probably needed a bit of work, because obviously you can get in on the lower end of the scale if you get something that needs a bit of work. So we were happy to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there were a lot of learnings. I think, you know, moving from a different state or territory, you know, long distances, you know, your ability to be able to look at places and see them and really understand them and know the suburbs and know how it works, it's really challenging. Now, we're fortunate that we had family and who were fantastic, so we were able to work out what schools were going to be important for us and what locales were close, and, you know, being close to family as well. So we were able to tick all those boxes. And we learn a few things as well, you know, and it's created our next move, which is just as great. But yeah, I think the busyness for me, I don't know whether I'm more of a worrier, but it always worried me with the kids, because the kids want to play outside, they want to play out the front, they want to play out the back. We've got a dog running around, and it always worried me. So I think being in a quieter locale for me, it costs more. So it's really always a challenge and such a way up. But it's so great to have the kids to be able to play out the front and play with the neighbours, and be able to have kids right up to the house, leave their bikes out the front, and not be worried about anything. True. So for me, the feelings of that were just, really great. And, so really caused us, a great importance in thinking about how do we get the next place that has some of those differences there. But yeah, I think it's really a hard decision. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about some of those things that were really on our mind, and the things that we thought through to help us with that decision process. And at the end of the day, it's about yourselves. So it's about you and your family. And it's really tricky because you've got lots of outside factors. You've got great ecosystem of friends and family. And so there's so many hard things to adjust to, and you go into an unknown. So that's also really challenging. I think the big thing that I've noticed, even with our really small move at the moment, is the kids really feel it as they get older.
Definitely.
So I think, lots of people and families move all the time, and it works and it happens, but I can see the adjustment that the kids take as they get older.
Yeah.
Home is a real safe place for them, and a real comfortable place.
Yeah.
And I could see with the move that we've made, although we've said to them, we want to stay here for a long time now, so this is now your home, it's still taking time to adjust, and it is early for us, but I can see that the kids do feel it. And, when they say they're, in a tricky situation, or they're not feeling good, they'll sometimes say, why did we have to move? I love my old house. It's still there. I can still see it really clearly.
And all of them only remember that house. So that was, making the decision to move here. We thought it was a great idea, but getting the kids on board was another story, because that was the only house they knew. Whereas Dan and I, when the kids were little, we actually moved 3 times before the kids were even, would even know what was happening. So that was the only house they knew. So it took a bit of getting used to, and as you say, Dan, they're still bringing it up when they're not feeling the best. Why we have to move? I hate this house. But also there's a lot of renovation that has to occur in this current house. So I think once we get this house looking a bit nicer and looking a bit more modern, I think they'll probably feel a little bit more at home, because it'll be similar to what we had at our old place, which will make them feel more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on, and let's talk a little bit about the financial side of all of these moves and these changes, and how we built up to it. I think that's really important. So, there's an Australian dream, isn't there, that you own your own house, and when you start your first job, it's all you think about. We've got to save, we've got to get a house, and it's so important. And I think we had that view. Our parents have that view. Most of our family have had that view, and so that has been our ingrained way of living and way of our upbringing. But we did things a little bit differently when we were in Sydney, didn't we? So we owned we rented first.
We did.
We then saved up and bought ourselves a townhouse, and we lived in that for a few years, which was amazing. We then rented that out and went and rented a number of other houses that were bigger in the same area, and then in different areas, didn't we?
Yeah.
And look, there's so many great upsides of both, and I think we can talk to those, like as a family, what we think are the ups and downs. So I think, rental houses, there are so many great upsides, is in that your care factor for many things is not there. So, the garden you just got to maintain. You don't need to uplift and really make it beautiful. You just need to keep it the same. And we were lucky in some of our houses it was beautiful, but all you have to do is just keep it the same, which was incredible.
Yeah.
You didn't really need to think about, what do we want to do with this place? We would fix that, and you didn't think like that. You just think, let's live. Let's just enjoy the place. Let's get to know the suburb, get out there. And so I think there's so many great benefits. And then obviously the fact that you don't have a loan hanging over your head is also a huge benefit as well. But
also there's that rental stress as well. They still have to pay something to live in that house. And quite often rents now are quite expensive, and it's still a stress, right? So we're not taking away from anybody that that mortgage stress is better or worse than rental stress. It's still a stress, whatever money you have to pay out to live in a house. it is quite stressful, and it would be a major stressor on any relationship and in any family.
Absolutely. I guess we're talking about what are the pros and cons of each. So, and I think living in your own house, there are some huge benefits, and I think if you're fortunate enough to be in that situation, then it is something that is great for when you're bringing up your family, because you can make it your own.
Yes.
The kids are always breaking things, wrecking things. Yes, I'm still worried about it, but at the end of the day, I know it's our house. I know we can fix it, and they're living their life, and that's what we did as kids, and you've got to be able to do that. So I think, but also shaping it and making it your own and saying, no, we're going to do this here. We're going to fix this garden, or we're going to fix this grass and make it look like this. And it gets everyone excited.
There is an inside of the house as well. So, do a bathroom or a bedroom or etc. Just get your head out of the garden there.
Yeah.
He's focused on the garden because that's what he's doing at the moment.
Absolutely. Things you can control. So, yeah, I think there are pros and cons of each. So let's talk about mortgage pressure and what that does to a family, because that is a huge factor. And that was one of the key drivers that we moved away from Sydney, was to try and manage and mitigate the sizable mortgages. And albeit we still have one right now, and it is sizable as well, but at the same time, I think it's manageable for us.
Yes.
But it's still a big thing for us, and it's still a big expense that we have to deal with month to month. And that's only growing with the changes that we're going to make and improvements that we'll make to the house. So it's a really big thing. But I guess I want to explain how I look at it. And then, Kristy, I'm interested in how you look at it, because I think you can get really stuck month to month, and you've got to make sure that you can manage it month to month. So that's just a known that you have to be able to do. And that's really challenging and tricky in itself. But we're fortunate to live in a country where prices will continue to evolve and change and hopefully improve in most locations and in most areas. And so your ability to be able to manage and pay and save and be able to pay more where you can, whilst hopefully seeing your price of your property go up somewhat, allows you the ability to say, let's think ahead here. Don't think about, don't worry completely about the day and now, and that how we're going to manage this, how we're ever going to be able to pay off the whole amount of this. We try and just think ahead to say, all right, yes, it's valuable. Yes, it's going to continue to be valuable. And what's the worst that's going to happen here? The worst that's going to happen is we'll lose it, but we've still got each other. We've still got our family. If we lost it and we had to go and live in something small or something different, well, it's not the end of the world to us. Like, I think for me, I look at it as, we're so fortunate to be where we are, and we've done really well to get what we have, and we're very, very lucky. At the same time, it doesn't shape us. Our house doesn't shape us, in that if we didn't have this, our family would be over.
No, yeah, definitely. I agree.
And that's such a hard realization to have, right? Like, I think a lot of people think about their house as it's defining them. It's who they are. And I think we're lucky to have it. And I've always had a vision in my head of, some of the things that I wanted to have, and some of them we've got, some of them we don't have, some of them we're trying to get. But at the end of the day, I think that if we lived in a 2-bedroom unit and there was 6 of us there, we would survive, and we would still be happy, and we would still make it work. And, really, hoping that that's not an eventuality for us, but I know it's an eventuality for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, you can get stuck in it and think, we're not getting through it, or this isn't the life that we wanted. But I really think that you've got to have that view of, well, if worst comes to worst and that did happen, well, we've still got each other. We've got a great family. We've got really great things. And if some of those things have to go, well, we could start again, or we might just be happy with a different way of living. And I know it's hard to say that, and you probably don't think I think that. But
it's eye-opening.
But that's how I live.
Yeah. And it makes sense, right? As long as, we've got each other, and our house is just our house. A house is just something that our house is our home, but wherever we are together is our home. So it doesn't matter what our house look like. And if we have to sell it and move somewhere, that would work too.
We would do it.
We would do it. If we have to downsize, hopefully we don't have to face that situation. But if we do, we have each other's backs like we always do for everything. So I think if you, yeah, I hadn't really ever thought about it. I've always thought about, oh well, money's. I have the thought, money. We can always make more money. We can, there's always something we can do to make money. There's always something we can do as a job. We've got a great set of skills between us, and we'd be able to put them to use doing something to be able to pay for this house. If we both need to get two lots of jobs to be able to manage, but that would change the dynamics of our house. It would change the dynamics of our situation, of our family. And so, but you can always make more money. Well, so I think, yes, we have a mortgage, yes, we have a debt, but we've got a long time to pay it off. And in no way, shape or form am I concerned about that. With Dan's job, he's got a very good job. We own businesses. There's lots of balls in the air financially for us. However, it's never been a concern for me because I'm across it. I'm across the finances. Dan's across the finances. We're in it together. And we know that if something does happen, we'll just face it together.
Yeah, and I think this comes to the how we manage it part of it. And yes, we really know what's going on.
Yeah.
We really know the numbers, and it's boring. It's not that fun. And to be honest, you don't want to look at those numbers because sometimes they're scary, and they really are. But you got to know them. You got to know what's going to go out and what's going to come in, and what are the commitments that we have to meet, and what are the things that we want that we might not be able to have now. And that's probably the hardest thing that I think in life that you have to live. And for me, that's really hard because you think, oh, but Mike down the road has that, and I would really like to have that too. And you really get into that crazy mindset that really affects you. And you really got to get out of that and think about back to, all right, so what do we want? Who do we want to be? How do we want to create the family that we want? And all of those outside factors of the things out there and the things you can buy and the places you can be, all that, they're all just extra things on the outside. And yes, they're nice, and yes, they're exciting, but it's really not the driver of why we had a family. That's not a driver.
No.
And yes, they're things that are interesting for me in life. And they, excuse me, they do drive me somewhat. But if I didn't have those and I still had a great family, I'd be as happy. And the fact that we're able to say that, I think, is really, really important, because that's what we care most about in our life, isn't it?
It is. I'm laughing because last night the kids and I watched Bluey episode Hammer Barn, and that's very, very true. In their neighbour gets a pizza oven, which you really want, and Dad says, "Oh, where'd you get that?" And he said, "Oh, Hammer Barn." And so Dad immediately says, "All right, we're going to Hammer Barn." And he goes down there and he gets a pizza oven because he wants to be exactly like his mate. And of course there's that draw. Of course there's that want. But sometimes that doesn't always happen. So we sound like this is all perfect. Oh, we love each other, as long as we've got each other. And it's not always like that, obviously. And the financial stress, and I think I stress about it. I'm a bit more risk averse than Dan, and I stress about it a little bit more, whereas Dan's just "Oh, no worries, it'll be fine, whatever." And I think that's where we differ. But being across the numbers has helped me, and being able to understand where we're headed and what we want to do and how we're going to get there. And that's where Dan has helped me see the future and what we're going to do in the future. That's helped as well, I think.
And it's constant negotiation and prioritization. It really changes a lot. And, sometimes it's hard because you think, I said I would do this, I'm going to do this. But sometimes your finances don't meet that, or sometimes just your priorities change. And so it's got to continue to evolve to be able to meet the needs of your family. And so you might have said, oh gosh, we really wanted to get a bush block, which is something that we've always wanted to get. Sorry, always wanted to get. It's been a dream for me for a long while, and thought that was coming up soon, and now it's not for a while, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I'm lucky a couple of my family do live in rural areas, and we've got friends that have, and there's many options there. And so, but I guess the important part is that, we're together. We've got great things that we think are really going to be, important for us,
Yep.
going to help our family grow and be together and allow us to entertain our family and friends and do all the things
Yep.
that we want to do. And some of the things that maybe we do want but can't get now, we'll get later, or maybe we'll work out that we really didn't care about those and that's why we didn't get them in the first place.
True. Yeah. So that kind of leads us into the last little bit about expanding and growing. And in my mind, this section was going to be about renovating because that is forefront of my mind at the moment. That's all I'm thinking about. What we're going to do to this house. It's quite extensive. But I think you're always looking for things to do in your house, whether it's a huge renovation, whether it's the extension, whether it's doing up the backyard, whether it's having to do, fix a garage door or put new blinds up. There's always something that every homeowner thinks, oh, I've got to do that. Oh, that's next on my list. And it never ends. It's always, house maintenance is always a thing, no matter how big or small it is. And that was one of the choices that we made with moving, was that we were going to put money into where we were and spend some more time and spend some more money and effort making that what we wanted. Might not be the right location, but will we do that, or will we just find somewhere else? And we decided to find somewhere else, and it all worked out for us. But in saying that, we've also taken on the huge responsibility of and it's not really a responsibility, it's the choice. We made the choice that we would move here knowing that we would have to do some huge renovations to make it what we wanted. We could see the potential, and we've chosen, this is a choice.
And it's it's an adjustment. I think our other house was really beautiful, and we had made it really nice. And now coming to a place that's not like that, you got to adjust a little bit, and it takes a little bit of mental adjustment. But in the end, back to what I was just talking about before, it's got the right people in it. Yeah. It's got the right bones of it. We've got a vision for it. So we know where we're going. It's not here today, but we will get there. Mm-hmm. It's going to require big decisions. It's going to require a lot of work from us. It's going to require a lot of investment from us. And they're somewhat scary, but we think they're important. And, I think doing them now while our kids are here and can enjoy it and be part of it is a great investment. And yes, it's going to mean it's going to cost us, and we're going to have to invest more money, and we're going to have to save up for that and make that happen and work harder to be able to deliver on that. We think it's a great investment for our family now rather than doing it later when they're not as here as much and they don't need it as much.
And I really enjoy having people visit our home. I love entertaining. I love having my house full of people. And I think with our renovations, that's going to open that up even more so. I'm still happy to have people here right now. It'll just mean that we're, it's just a bit funny how we're all, sitting for dinner or whatever. But I think with the renovations, and that's also the other thing we're chasing is a family home that everybody can feel comfortable in. And someone actually visited the other day, our sister-in-law, and she said, your house is so comfortable and so welcoming. We can tell that you're really content and you're really happy in the way that you open your home. And they've all people have always said that about our homes, but it's really nice to hear. Even in a new house, it still feels homely. It still feels welcoming. It still feels just as content as where we were before. And that's a really nice, and that's probably to do with not the walls, it's to do with the people. And I think that's a really nice thing to think about when you think about wherever you're living, is as long as your home feels comfortable and safe and your family is content there and your visitors are content and happy to come to your home, I think that's a beautiful reflection. I think that's a beautiful reflection on our family.
Absolutely. And it's not perfect. I think that's the thing that is really important to call out. We're really, really far from perfect, but we're quite okay with that. And I know some people aren't. I know some people need it to be in a certain way and a certain look and things like that. And if that's important to you, that's fantastic. But I think for us, that perfection level is not attainable. And not only that not attainable, it might be attainable, but it's going to cause a lot of stress and pain, and it's not worth it for us. So getting it to a level that it's nice, welcoming, open, is really important to us. But getting it to a perfect show home type level, we're not going to be that, and that's not us. So, it's got to be right for you. I think that was the thing I wanted to finish on, was to be able to say it's got to be right for you, who you are, what you want your family to be, and align to all of those values that are most important to you.
Yeah, and I think our home reflects that, and that's a beautiful thing for me. Even with our salmon pink carpet and our maroon velvet curtains at the moment, people still feel welcomed in our home, and that's all I want in my home, is that everybody feels welcome here. And that's one of my values that I hold really, really tight, is that inclusivity. Everybody can come on down.
Yep, and we do that, and I think that's one of the things of why we moved here and why we are here, is we love the fact that any one of our kids' friends can just turn up, leave their bikes down the bottom, right, step on up, and they're in the house, and the next minute you're like, oh, hey, g'day, mate, how are you? And they're just away, and off they go. And that's really what we want our house and our life to be like. So yeah, I think we're certainly embracing the crazy, aren't we? And making it happen.
Definitely. All right, so yeah, we had a good discussion today about why we chose where we live, the financial pressures, which is a huge thing for any relationship, any family, and then we talked about expanding and growing, and how non-perfect our house is, but how welcoming that could be because of the people that are in it. And it's not just the four walls around us, it's who's here and who's welcome here, and that's the really important thing for us and our family. So thanks for all your support, and thanks for tuning in again. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Catch you all.